one of my most favorite quotes that a guest said uh, is that basically construction people come together as strangers and leave as enemies, and it's a pretty strong statement. And we I love to see less of that, and I would love to see people kind of working on processes and projects and things like that. Because I mean, we don't want to just go to work and just know it's a frustrating experience. We kind of want to go to work and have some relief. And I think that it would be, construction is sometimes a very long process because this could become years being with these people. So I think having more of a collaborative environment would be beneficial.
Welcome to the EBFC Show, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction. Today's show is also sponsored by the Lean Construction Institute. LCI is working to lead the building industry in transforming its practices and culture. Its vision is to create a healthy and thriving industry that delivers outstanding project outcomes every time for everyone. Check the show notes for more information. Now, to the show.
Welcome to the show, Marcus Turner. Marcus, I am so excited to have you on the show that I even woke up early to make sure that I didn't miss you. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a treat. Marcus Turner is the one person that you need to be following on LinkedIn and social media. He is my secret weapon as to how I've become so able to use AI to enhance my workflows, my lifestyle, and all the things that I want to get done to make my life easier, better, and faster. Marcus, please introduce yourself so people can know why you're such a gangster when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence, and all things tech.
Thank you for that, Felipe. You definitely have taken some things that I've showed you and definitely ran with it in ways that I never imagined. And I am so proud of all the things that you've accomplished, where I'm learning stuff from you at this point, and we're sharing information back and forth. It's really cool because we can text each other like, look what I found, and it's kind of awesome. My name is Marcus Turner. I am part of the second half of Constructor. If anybody here who follows the show remembers Brittany Camo Turner, she is my wife, and I am. We're on the journey working together, trying to figure out how to make the construction industry more interesting. How I stumbled upon AI and working with it was actually around 2020. Yeah, 2020. When we were working on marketing efforts as far as trying to get our communication out there. And we were messing with what I didn't know at the time, but I actually got to learn through Clubhouse. Everybody remembers being on Clubhouse in 2020?
Yeah, I remember.
But what I learned is that I was using it through this one platform that was trying to help us work on our marketing messages. And I was really frustrated during the time of trying to figure out, like, what do I need to say to get it to look the way that I wanted to do. I don't understand how to get AI to do that. And then I was like, so what is this system using? I don't understand why this software is even like needed in the first place. And I started learning about GPT-3, and I started learning about prompt engineering. And so I realized I didn't really need that software product anymore. So I kind of like dished that product off to the side. And I was like, oh, okay, this GPT-3 thing seems to be kind of more worth it, trying to mess around with that. I had some results, and then actually I walked away from it. And then like a lot of people, ChatGPT came around, and I got excited. And I was like, how factual is this information? Trying to figure stuff out. So during that time, it came out during the same time college finals were happening. And I had some friends who were professors. So I had some friends who were professors who were very kind to me to actually give me some of their finals and some papers, and gave me some ideas to come up with. And I was just like, I can see totally, if I was a college student, I can use this to cheat. So
Get that edge.
Full transparency.
Yeah.
And so I asked my college friends because I really wanted to dive into like how accurate was the information and what is the acceptable level. Um, and um, they were like, this is actually not that bad. This is actually pretty good. And then they showed me some answers that they came up with and the way that the AI solved the problem. I got to the right solution. The steps that I did was not necessarily something that they would teach. But I still got to the same solution. And then, so we had some conversations back and forth. How are you going to prepare for the next semester? Stuff like that. Do you think this is going to replace students, teachers? Do you think this is going to help teachers? And a lot of them actually came with them from a very positive mindset. One of the professors I was talking to was a communications professor. So there's a lot of written papers and things like that. And he was like, I'll just probably do a lot more like speaking. So how do you present yourself and things like that? So more real world type of stuff instead of just like looking at papers every single time because a lot of, you can have as much AI detection software out there in the world. It doesn't mean that all someone has to do is just run it through two different AI programs or something like that. And then all of a sudden, hey, I got a paper.
There you go. So for all the listeners, you just heard how to hack through. It's that easy to beat the AI detection.
Yeah. And it's always going to be like a forever game, going back and forth. So, um, and I think I think that was part of it. And then another part was talking to one that was a math teacher. I actually learned that it's not as good with an engineering professor friend of mine. It wasn't as good with math than as I thought it was. So we tried some stuff and I was like, okay, so AI is not fully ready to be kind of this all-encompassing thing where we can just ask a question to it and it'll give us a Jarvis-like answer and everybody can be Tony Stark Iron Man, So
Yeah, it's got some limitations. I mean, I've even asked it like basic finance equations and it's good at telling you like what's the definition of the equation and it'll lie to you and tell you that it's calculating correctly. And then if you run the math yourself on the side, you're like, hey, this math doesn't math. And then you call it out.
Math.
It doesn't math. Math doesn't math. And then it'll apologize to you and then run it again. And like magically on the second time, it usually gets it right. Usually, not always.
Yeah.
So check AI's math, people. If you're relying on AI math, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find, I don't use it as much for math anymore, but one of the things I actually use a lot for it is asking it code, especially with ChatGPT. Sometimes if you can get it to solve a math problem by showing code, it's actually a lot more reliable. I think they have some Python scripts that they can kind of run in the background, at least for Chat GPT. We'll get into the other AIs after that, but that is something that they actually do a really good job with. So
Yeah, I absolutely do. I agree. And there's even some with the GPT store now, you can create your own GPT and force it into those environments where you're calling up like Python to do some things. And if you're running software that's like good for math, like Python, super good, your odds for correct answers are going to be very high. But the large language model in itself is like you're asking it to do something that it was not intended to do, even though there have been emergent things happening with OpenAI, which we want to get into on the show. But before we get into all that, Marcus, thank you for introducing yourself. And I think the other thing you forgot to mention, I'm just going to remind you, Marcus and I are both nerds. So just in case you didn't know and it didn't come across, like you heard him, he's like talking to teachers. He's not in school anymore. He's been out of school for a long time and he still talks to teachers. So just goes to show like that's things we have in common. Like we're both, electrically focused and we both are not in school, but still learning every single day, which is why I love getting those text messages from you at 11 o'clock at night because It's going to be something good. It's going to be good. So I wanted to ask you, like, just starting off, what is something that surprised you recently with AI?
Ooh. I haven't gotten into this one yet. Uh, this is a lot. I think the thing that actually caught my interest was this thing called AI scientist. And um, there's a version of it that I could talk about a little bit earlier, but I think going into this one was pretty deep. So AI scientist is created by a lot of some people that are scholar researchers and things like that. And basically, they just wanted to do. They're like, well, there's this process that we do to write these academic research articles and things like that. But what we also want to do is take the research articles and start adding them together and trying to see if AI can find some ideas and help us find some solutions from it. So um, that's the big, carry audacious goal of theirs is that now we could use AI to do all this research, and this research then can now be executed by AI. And now we can find some other things that we didn't find before because we just didn't necessarily think about it in the way that an AI would. I mean, I wouldn't say a way that an AI would, but like we can't iterate as fast. And basically using AI to be able to be the assistant to help us be able to do that. Now we could be able to do some things a lot better than we normally could before. Um, so that has caught my interest as of late. Um, and I think the other thing that has caught my interest just recently is seeing AI as far as being able to kind of create your own small apps on the side. Um, and it could be like a calculator. It can be like, hey, it can actually be, hey, I just want to create an interactive lesson plan, stuff like that, little small stuff that you'd never really think of. Oh, I don't have a PDF highlighter. Oh, I gotta buy a PDF highlighter. Well, why can't I just ask AI to help me build a PDF highlighter? So now I can highlight the PDF and send it back to the person that I was talking to. And I spent no dollars on that. Kind of awesome.
There you
So,
go. That's so cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I've done a couple AI talks, and you've done a couple AI talks as well in the construction space. And the last one I did one, I had a researcher from the University of Austin, Texas, in the audience, and there's a section at the end of the presentation where I just open up a prompt window and I ask the audience is there anything they want to see so they could practice prompting with me because I've got years of experience now prompting thanks to you. And so we asked it about research. And the interesting thing is I found out a couple of things. Like construction research right now, there's almost nothing on AI. And the reason for that is because it takes researchers with peer review and the process they have to go through about 2 years on the fast side and more than 2 years on the typical side. So we're about to see a wave starting next year and the year after on lots of research published about AI in the design and construction space. It's coming, but there's almost nothing there yet because all the papers are in review and going through the process. And so the researcher asked, like, I've got this topic I'm thinking about. And through prompting, we took that topic and then we used GPT and Claude create iterations of things that they can study that would be interesting based on what their objectives were, the research. And they were just amazed at how fast it did it. And she said, her comment was like, what you just did on the screen could sometimes take us like 3 months or 4 months to get to the same end result. And you just did it in like 20 seconds. And it's only because I'm a slow typer.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I would have voice to texted it, it would have been like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and honestly, I really can't wait for the 4.0 voice to text feature to come out so I can kind of dialogue with the AI a little bit more. But I use it now and I absolutely love it. And I think I think that's going to probably be the way that a lot of people start interacting with it a little bit. Because even today, it was weird for me like a little while ago, but I have friends who send me voice memos instead of actual text messages, which is pretty dope. But I didn't even think that was like when I first got it, I was like, why are you sending me a voice memo? It was like
I know I have a couple friends that consistently send me voice memos, and I'm still not used to it. I'm like, you just get we're just creatures of habit, Marcus. You get used to seeing characters in your little box in the message, and that's what you expect. And you get weird stuff. Like I have a friend that sends me videos through WhatsApp, which I really love. Like those are so cool to get short videos in WhatsApp. So there's different things that people use, and just I like of all my friends that message me, I like it that you spice it up, keep it spicy.
yeah. I'll start sending him some more voice memos, everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Let's start a trend. Voice memos. So I want to get into unpacking a couple things. Everyone, this is going to be a great episode. You're going to listen to the show 2 times, unpacking a little bit about AI and some of the current trends in design and construction. All right. So Marcus, as an observer in the construction industry, you've had a lot of experience in your prior career. What has surprised you about how buildings get built?
I think to me, it depends on the organization. And I think that part bothers me. Um, how much upfront work an organization wants to do. And I think the other thing that bothers me a lot is when you don't do the upfront work, and some companies use this term, not all do, but value engineering. And it really is, I'm not going to say the word because, it's a podcast. We effed up.
Yeah.
And we are now going to figure out what can we cut from the process that we think is not as wouldn't impact the project as much. And sometimes just having the upfront conversation would be it. So I think those two spaces or those two things, because my background for was working at a nuclear power plant. And one of the things that we did consistently is we brought all the parties together who were going to be working on the project or the process or wherever the maintenance activity was. And they were pretty extreme with it. So this will go down to even changing of a light bulb. So who are the people you need to call, sit down, have a work package put together, have a plan, scheduled around the plan, and you execute the changing of the light bulb. But there is some consistency within that. So you got to know what to expect, and you kind of set a pattern and you set a standard. Those who are sports fans, some people like their teams to play hard. And even though somebody, let's say, I'm a basketball fan, so I'm just going to say, contesting a shot after the whistle's been blown, stuff like that. Like there's a standard to play, and you try to set the standard of play so you can be consistent. So when those times when you are, you're tired, you're fatigued, and things like that, everyone has that routine kind of built in. So when something actually happens that needs to happen, you just kind of do it instinctively as a team or as a group. So I think that was really good. And I think that when I looked into construction, had conversations with construction professionals and things like that, that was the one thing that I saw that was kind of lacking, was the lack of camaraderie and teamwork. On Brittany's podcast, I think one of my most favorite quotes that a guest said is that basically construction people come together as strangers and leave as enemies. And it's a pretty strong statement. And I love to see less of that. And I would love to see people kind of working on processes and projects and things like that. Because I mean, we don't want to just go to work and just know it's a frustrating experience. We kind of want to go to work and have some relief. And I think that it would be, construction is sometimes a very long process because this could be years being with these people. So I think having more of a collaborative environment would be beneficial.
That is so good. That's such a good quote. I was on a job one time, and I also like to remember the things people say, and I even will write down. So I commit it to memory. And one of the things that popped into mind as you were saying that is there was a a contractor. It's a mixed job. It was like a complicated job, design build, and the one of the general contractors in charge said something to the effect of, "We've decided what we're going to do. We're no longer asking for your permission." And they said, "Tough shit, we're doing it." And that was like their quote. That was in response to I remember it was a trade contractor was asking a question. It's related to design, and that response was like as if the designer, was present, which they weren't
Mhm.
at the time. But this is the type of the environment is such that people get pitted against each other, even though they're trying to build something together.
Yeah.
And that's a design build. I mean, so like people are, taking hard lines, even in design build, which is supposed to be like the solution to the hard bid. It's supposed to solve all the problems of the hard bid, just like construction management was supposed to solve all the problems of the hard bid, before that. And we keep iterating. Now we've got, fast forward to today, we have integrated project delivery, which is supposed to solve all those problems. But we can unpack that and talk about that on another show. So I want to go back into AI. And this is a true story, but the audience, you don't know that in order to make this podcast happen today, Marcus and I both had to use AI in different ways just to get all of our tech to work. And I was commenting to him as we were getting set up that, Zoom has all these new features in place. Like we could share our screens at the same time. It's like, I didn't get the memo on the release notes Zoom for that happening. We are recording this in Zoom because it's just easy. And I've experimented. If you're a fan of the show, we're in season 5. I've used 4 different platforms throughout the years to make these shows possible. And I started with Zoom, and I'm back on Zoom after 5 years. So, but I still experiment and I try stuff. And I'm super glad that Marcus also does the same. We learn and we keep sharp. When we come to like a black screen or like stuff that doesn't work, nothing can stop the show.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy. Like sometimes when you run into problems, and this was actually a quote. I think one of the things that a friend said to me recently, and I think this is actually something I actually use in my talks now. We get so used to doing something a certain way that we forget that we can just ask AI for the solution to whatever our problem is, because we've been so trained to do it a certain way just based off of our habits.
That is so true. That is so true. I was roped into something recently, Marcus, where somebody had gotten an assignment, and this person does not use AI. They're aware that AI exists, but they haven't played with it at all, and the company they work for does not encourage them to play with it. And I could tell because of how you've helped me retrain my brain with prompt engineering that my ability to use all of my lean thinking to turn my thinking around to what's possible and to focus on the outcome that I want changes how I talk to people. So when I was talking to this individual, I said, because they asked me, like, can you help me? Oh, I need some lean help, is what they said. And so for me, I confirmed that they actually wanted coaching and that everything's possible. It's a wide open. Because sometimes as a coach, you could be asked a question and they don't really want your help. They just want you to listen to their process. But this was a case where they actually wanted coaching. So I said, this is what you said. This is your state. This is what's going to happen if you go down your path. And then here's an alternative. If you change 2 things, you can now do this. What you thought was going to take 2 years and what had taken 2 years you now can get done in less than 4 weeks. And at first they were like, no, can't be done. And I just walked them through, like, it's just thinking in like the way that you prompt. Give some context. This is what you want. And I had to do a little algebra to calculate the time. And my algebra was pretty good because they already had the answer. Their process as is takes 2 years. The revised process, 4 weeks. And it was awesome. And now it's happening. And I asked the question, just to close the loop, I said, what's your first step? And I made them like tell me what the first step was. And I was like, nope, that's not it. They went right back into the process that they used for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nope, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait until you execute step 1 to make sure that it starts. And then I said, I'm going to see you in a couple days. And the first thing I'm going to say is, are you on to step 2 yet? And I'm just going to be on you like until we get done. And we close it out in 4 weeks. Now, in reality, they got 6 weeks to get it done. So we got a 2-week buffer. So, I'll give it 2 weeks for them to go back and make some mistakes. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I want to let's go back to, let's stay on AI, Marcus. And what are some of the current trends in design and construction that, people like me that I'm out there nerding out with it all the time, but most of the audiences, I've polled people and you've had talks with construction folks and it's a mix. Like if you're going to an AI talk, you're going to get more than average people. When I talk to the everyday construction partner, they're not using AI at all. What's your take?
I would say it's still very early days. It still feels very early days. Most people, they've heard of AI. Even some companies have even implemented AI solutions where they're using, you can access GPT 4.0 or Claude or Gemini, which is Google's product. But the thing is that a lot of people still use it, or there's different levels of it. One is I've used it and I didn't like it. And typically those are the people who are kind of using it as a search engine. And it's not a search engine. I think one of the consistent themes that I do in my talks is, you got to think of it if you're talking to an assistant or an intern. What are the steps that you're going to guide an intern with? How are you going to walk through the process with them? What's the end goal? What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the constraints that you have on your question? So, and then the layer 2 of that is, I would always say that another thing that I would tell people is that give it a role. You are a construction engineer or you are a commercial licensed architect. Licensed architect would probably get you they'll probably say, I'm not a licensed architect, blah, 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 blah. But if you get it to role play in that realm, it can get you start thinking about what an architect would think about. Maybe even if you had like a document and maybe you have a perspective that you have on the document, but you want to understand another partner's perspective, right? So those who do personas in companies, they understand, they have a list of what those personas are. Well, based off a list of these personas, what would you think if I said this and you posted the document at? Give me a debate back. You can get a list of things, and now you can just find out some of the objections or some of the concerns what somebody would have based off of a document or a plan or something like that. So I think just playing those 2 things help a lot. And then the third one is what I would always say is in most of your prompts, explain in a step-by-step way or let's think step by step. If you can do those things where it can kind of give you a breakdown of the process of what it's showing, because it's still a prediction model, but it's a prediction model based off the world. What I mean by that is if it basically predicts the next token. So the cow jumps over the
moon.
Yeah.
I'll play along.
Okay, so it's stuff like that. So Romeo and
Juliet.
perfect.
Julieta.
Yes, depending on, but so it's playing off of that. And what you want to do is build it context. And if you build more context and you build in constraints and you build in role playing and you tell it to think step by step, you will get better results out of what your answers are. Instead of saying, okay, tell me the top five, blah, 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 just like how you would use Google. Give me the latest, blah, 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 blah. And that's just not what a large language model using just ChatGPT or using just Google Gemini by itself. That's not what they're capable of. They don't have access to the search engines and they don't have access to those type of things. Now, if I said you can give now you can give it a tool to use, then it would use that tool. Then it would synthesize some of that stuff. And that's what you're seeing. I'm assuming most people still use Chrome today. That's what you're seeing within Chrome now, that you're seeing AI generated stuff at the top for a little bit, and it's giving you a summary or synopsis. And now you're seeing the links that are followed behind it. Bing does the same thing now in their Bing chat feature. Those who are using, and they're using, Bing Chat is using GPT 4.0. So if you prefer 4.0, I'm not saying that you should go to Bing, but if you prefer 4.0, you can use Bing Chat to be able to do so.
Yeah, and even Amazon is using Rufus to synthesize all the reviews. So if you go to, and I learned about this recently. I was on Amazon looking at cameras of all things, of course, because podcasters is what my next purchase is going to be, another camera. And it would take, like, some of these cameras have, thousands of reviews, thousands, because people love the products and they talk about it. So Rufus for Amazon is now giving you a one paragraph. Here's what most of the reviews say: helpful, not helpful, like, not like, and it's like a very consistent what people look at in the reviews that it's synthesizing for you. So you don't have to look at 10,000 reviews. You can, and it's a pretty good summary. I've used it a few times with some different types of products that I didn't have a lot of experience with, and it's found it to be very helpful. And when it first turned on, it was terrible because, like all things AI, like it starts really bad, but they've got to expose it to humans to help it train and learn. And then it gets better very fast, like the iterations and the speed of improvements. Like I've been experimenting with GPT on an app on my phone, talking to it. And we talked about this, Marcus. I had a consulting call about Scrum probably about, almost a year ago. And the voice to text was already a thing. And so I took the call. I was on the road, and it was like a 1 hour call. I didn't record the call. I didn't have the client's permission. I didn't ask. I'm in California, so we have to always ask. If you're going to record somebody, you got to ask their permission to be legal and compliant. So I just said, like, let me just do this live. I'm not going to record. And then after the call was over, I turned on GPT, and at that time, I think it was 3.5 voice to text, the audio version, the earlier version, not the version that's out now. And I just had a conversation with it. I said, I just had a consulting call. I want you to act as a coach to me, to coach me, the consultant, to make me a better consultant. I'm going to tell you what I talked about from memory. I want you to ask me questions for things that are not clear as I'm sharing you this narrative of what happened, and then coach me to do better to help the person the next time we talk. I want definitive things. So we had this conversation. I'm driving and I'm just talking, and I talked to it for 45 minutes. My coaching call was an hour, but I would talk to AI for 45 minutes while I was driving, hands-free. So it's like just going through my car. And at the end of all that, I got a transcript. So I could go back and see, like, oh, do this better, listen here. Like, and it gave me suggestions, like, you did it. And it even gave me good things too. So it's, a lot of the things, Marcus, when you're working with people and you ask for help or feedback, everybody always wants to give you constructive criticism, like, right away. And so I appreciated the large language model reinforcing the good coaching things that I was doing, like, listening first, asking clarifying questions. It said I did a really good job of doing that. And I was just super impressed. And since then, I've continued to refer back to that occasionally and continue enhancing and improving my ability to be more effective coaching. I think now today, if you're listening to the show and you haven't practiced with AI, just think about people like Marcus and I that have been doing this for almost half a decade now. And if you're not, you can catch up. You can still start to learn. There's really no reason why you can't learn something. And Marcus, you've got stuff that you want to share. So I don't know if you got more trends that you want to unpack, or if you want to start sharing.
I can actually follow up with another story that's in line with all of this, right? So working with Brittany's a part of the Respect for People committee. So those who were at the LCI last event know that it was recorded. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to get a comprehensive definition of what respect for people actually means. So we recorded the event. People spoke. And one of the things that we wanted to do was, one, anonymize everything that's there. And then two, figure out what their stories were. So we wanted to summarize each person's story. So we, this is what I did, was summarize each one's story. And then from there, we looked at everyone's story and said, okay, based off of these stories, this is what our current working definition is. Okay, now, based off of these stories that you now have, that are now summaries, take these stories and now add that to what do you think the new definition should be based off of the stories that were provided. So, and then what I usually do during those type of processes is I don't never ask for just one based off of those. I ask for multiple, because I want different things, different perspectives, and different things to be able to be shown to kind of go through that process. So I asked for 5, just simply 5. So as I said, based off of these, do 5 definitions, and it gave us 5 different definitions. Now, I'm not a part of the committee, but I do of the odd assist things such as that. And so that's what I ended up doing for that time. And then another thing that I did off of that was based off of each of one of the stories, because everyone had to, the reception of it was pretty high. It got ranked as far as the LCI scores, as far as meeting participations and things like that. So that was pretty good. And one of the things that I feedback is we want more programming, and we wish the session was longer. And so I said, based off of the stories that were shared and people seem to enjoy those, let's come up with curriculum based off these stories. And so what I did was I asked it to categorize a few of the stories to say what's similar to each other, and then build a program off of that. Now, what the Respect for People committee does after that with the information and things like that, that's up to them as far as what they want to do with it. But I did try to start doing the lesson planning process of this. And going back to my professor friend, he actually now uses AI for, both of them actually do. They both use AI for lesson planning, which is a big time suck for teachers. Those who are educators definitely try to see what ways you could be able to do that. And that was definitely something that they ended up doing throughout their process, is being able to use AI as an assistant to build out their lesson plan. So it's a lot easier for themselves.
Yeah, that's a great story. And even the AI talk that I was giving, where I talked about the researcher asking questions at the end, I tell people in the beginning, like, this entire presentation was started with me having a conversation with GPT 3.5 in the beginning, and then later 4.0 came out, GPT 4 came out later, and so it started a year ago. It built it in 3.5, including the slides, the flow, the timing. It's a 2-hour interactive presentation, and then we updated it with GPT 4, and we had feedback. We had sessions. We did a repeat. So we had, in our community in California, the community said, we want this AI presentation again. Like they wanted a replay live. And so we did it 2 more times. So 4 times total, Sacramento, San Francisco, and then Sacramento Bay and then Peninsula Bay Area. And in the second and fourth time, third and fourth time, got to get my math right. Third and fourth time, one of the feedback comments we got from the audience, this is one of the owners that builds over $1 billion a year in hospitals here in California, said, the presentation was very positive. And I'm not surprised because you asked AI to help you make it. It gave a very positive spin. What about the pitfalls? And so in the third and fourth version, we've now balanced the scary parts. I'm just going to call it the scary parts of AI. And one of the people, we had an electrical contractor, JP, shout out to JP, he went to all the sessions. So every time it was there, he's seen all of it. And he commented to us, like, number one, shockingly, how informative it is and like how we present it. And then the second thing was, he's like, and he mentions it every time now, because I've seen him like at 2 more events since then. He says every time he thinks about the updated version that shows the dark side of AI, he said it gives him nightmares like while he's awake every time. It's scary because the dark side, it can go to the worst parts of humanity, the things that it can do. And people they will assign the dark sides of AI like to the AI itself, and they forget that there's people prompting it, engaging with it, getting it to do these things. And so there are some like scary stuff about it, but it was interesting to see like how we took the same thing and we iterated with a new version of it and made it totally balanced for people. But it took like, I call it human in the loop. I didn't make that up, but that's in the space people talk about, don't forget the person inside. Like even you said, you did all this stuff with the Respect for People task force, and then you kicked it back to the humans in the loop that are responsible for implementing, where they go with that content. That's going to be up to them. So it's not automatically like doing something on its own.
No.
Even though there are now auto AIs and, that type of stuff where we could talk about if you want to, some of the scarier things that can happen.
I mean, I've messed around with Auto GPT, which was supposed to complete tasks for you based off of the questions that you ask. And what I realized was it ran up my API credits and it never completed the task. It's so, it took for me, it let me know that it's a long way to go from there. Some people try to, I looked on Twitter and saw some use cases and I was like, oh, okay, let me try that use case. I tried it, it didn't work. And I'm just like, this is a great experiment. I think it's a great thought experiment. You can probably take bits and pieces from this and be able to do some stuff. But, for those who are super, super deep into AI and agents and doing these things, there's some things I can definitely tell you to look into. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but Crew AI, AutoGen, and Llama Index and LangChain all have agent frameworks that you can build upon, that you can make these agents string into each other. Why is this important? Well, you want if I was giving an agent, if I was giving one AI one thing to be able to do the task, now the AI can critique itself using another AI, and now another agent, whereas we were talking about role playing and why role playing was very important. Now it's role playing different perspectives to be able to create some of these things. Now I can actually transition this into what I was going to show Felipe. And one of the reasons why this show came about is I was excited about some AI features and I wanted to show Felipe some of the things and some of the rabbit holes that I went down. And one of these things is showing how an AI agent can actually work for people to be able to do that. And so that's a good transition into what I'm going to share my screen upon.
Yeah, let's do it. Now, Marcus shares a screen just for all you know while he's finagling the share button, which is the big green button on the bottom. I've tried to get him on the show for a while, and this topic finally unlocked the key. So now we're here. So, and you all get to learn with me at the same time. Like, I have not seen what he's going to share. I'm seeing this for the first time myself.
We hear all the time that building enclosure is the #1 problem in construction. And when the task of the building enclosure is presented with so much pressure, it's something most of us would want to avoid. Until now, there has never been a course to teach someone how to manage a building enclosure. Building enclosure is a problem for every company, and the solution is often to ask someone within to try to find training or provide training to their teams to avoid these issues. Field Verified's enclosure management course is the answer to that problem. We learned the hard way, we've learned through failure, we've learned from others. This course, our team, will help those people who are assigned to manage the building enclosure be successful the first time so that they're spared some of the suffering and hardships that all of us went through. There's so much opportunity for a high return on investment, not just when an individual attends and all of the skills that they'll achieve, but when a team participates together, they can raise their level of performance by knowing what each other can do, what to expect, and they can raise the level of performance of that company as their careers excel and the company elevates along with them. The training is built on the science of how people learn. We capture all of the components that are necessary to master a skill. There's a hands-on component to the training where we're building a masonry mock-up, a metal panel mock-up, we're doing EFIS, and even installing a window that later you get to test. The hands-on training gives us the opportunity to translate the lines on paper to actual construction in the field. We always laugh because after the training, people come up and say, you know, this isn't just about building enclosure. There's a lot of leadership in here. There are a lot of people skills. That's because those skills are necessary to be successful in building enclosure and in construction. We'd love to see you get started right away. We have lots of options available. They can come to us in person at Field Verified in Phoenix, or we can bring the entire operation to your facility and train up to 25 people at a time. And we've created an online training that's available for people who might not be able to attend in person. Go to the website and contact us. We're going to start by understanding what problems you're currently experiencing and develop a specific program that's right for the needs of your company.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen a preview of how me and Felipe will talk back and forth now. So, Felipe, is there okay, so I'm going to ask you a question and then we can kind of go with it and I'll just type it in, right?
Okay.
So this is kind of using Storm is made by Stanford, which is what they ended up doing was creating a research assistant, which is a whole bunch of AI agents that were playing a role, chained together using a tool, and the tool is the internet. And it's a few things. One is called archives. One's actually called, they actually use GitHub as well to gather a lot of information and be able to create wiki-style argument articles based for research. So, Felipe, is there anything that you would, they're asking me to, there's a limitation to how long the topic could be, but can you send me a topic of something that you may be interested in, and then we can just kind of go from there?
Yeah, I'm interested in Scrum. So let's ask it about how industries are using Scrum in their management practices. And for those of you watching the show, you should know that I love Scrum. And I have a dedicated playlist just to all the Scrum episodes that happen. So I think I just forced this one to the playlist.
Okay. So do you want me to, should I elaborate, or should I just kind of ask that question and kind of go with it?
Yeah, I think let's just go with it without too much elaboration, see what we got.
Okay. Oh, I'm just going
to. No, you have to elaborate.
I'm just going to do the same thing and just type right here.
Okay.
And I'll change it. I want to understand.
There you go. So he's taking that prompt in. For those of you just listening, I want to understand how industries are using Scrum and management practices is the elaboration. So definitely check this out on YouTube if you're only listening to the audio version of the podcast. Love you, people. And while you're there, it's not going to hurt you to hit the like button and leave us a comment. Marcus and I will definitely be watching the comments on the show and answering your questions. So if you've got something and you want a deeper dive on, hit us up in the comments either on YouTube or on wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah. It takes about 3 minutes to be able to generate the article. While I do that, I can just sit here and wait for that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess your editor will probably cut this part out until I get to the actual answer. I hope
unless we talk about something interesting.
Okay.
And then otherwise, yeah. So like, shout out to editor Geronimo. Thank you for making the show so beautiful. Super appreciate what you're doing. If you're listening, this is how we'll know if Geronimo actually listens to the show. Editing process.
If not, if people are going to just get free banter. It's all right.
Yeah, this is a free banter. So yeah, like as fast as AI is, I could tell. This is the first time I'm seeing Storm. It's got the prompt says it's generating your article may take up to 3 minutes, and then it says start identifying different perspectives for the researching of the topic. Steps 1 of 4. So it looks like it's doing a multi-step thing. So if I was to guess what's happening behind the scenes, I would sense that it's searching what it's been trained on. Like you said, it's trained in a couple of different areas. What are the limitations of where it's trained? Does this go to the active internet now, or is it going to?
Yes, this is going to the active internet now. So one of the things I can do is actually show some articles that I actually did using the downloaded version. So this is completely open sourced. Okay. The one I was showing before is a web UI. So one of the things I can do is just kind of click one of these things. Since we talk about IPD for a little bit of this show, I happen to click I happen to create one based off of that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click this real quick, and kind of scroll through it pretty quickly. And so as you can see, there's like a table of contents. There's links. So these actually, I don't know if you can see the bottom left.
Yeah, I can see it. Cited sources, got references.
Yeah. So, which is really good.
10 references. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's
wow, 19 references. Hot dog.
Yeah. And you can kind of take this and then kind of read over this and then dive back in to go deeper into your research to be able to figure out some more things, right? Because this is creating an article, it's creating information. From there, you can actually see what questions were being asked too.
Oh my God. Like, hold on. As you were scrolling, I did read one sentence about the challenges right there. Challenges implementing AI within IPD frameworks. It's saying that it's going to be hard because an obstacle is traditional methods and manual repetitive tasks that affect. And it was like, as I was reading it, I thought that was pretty spot on, where it's talking about the significant challenges. People are so triggered and traumatized, Marcus, in construction. Like, there is no shortage of trauma written about how design and construction projects come together. And even in this, 19 reference article thing on AI with IPD, it's warning the reader, which is us now, that it's going to be hard because of these traditional methods that are really difficult, and a lot of the tasks are really manual. There's not been a lot of automation and process improvement in the construction space. And I had our mutual friend Sean Greystone on the show a couple seasons ago, and he talked about the way that we build today is based on methods from before the Civil War. And if a construction historian went back in time to the Civil War to see how projects get done, and they came back to 2024, it would look exactly the same, like the same processes. Some of the companies change and the names change, but the roles and the functions and the processes are still there, intact, the same. And it creates like that environment, like you said earlier, about how, from that quote, strangers come together, and they, after working together for a couple of years, they leave as enemies. Like, it creates a system that just turns people against each other sometimes. And, there's crazy people like myself and you and other people, Brittany for sure, that we think we don't have to fight with each other to get stuff done. We can actually work together. There is another way.
There's very few stories of dysfunctional sports teams that somehow won a championship in the end.
Yeah, I don't know of any. So what's this down here at the bottom now?
So if you wanted to kind of understand the thought process of what was the type of questions that are being asked, right? So you can see what the answers are based off of what and this is kind of using the AI's common knowledge, and it's asking it basically playing a role, being able to do that. And then it'll even show like where it says, hey, I don't have enough information to answer this question, right? So you're going through this, so you're seeing what the thought process is there, right? And then construction manager, there's different questions that are being asked as well. So I think, and then what's the other role? AI specialist. So they created the AI. So it created three roles: an IPD expert, a basic fact writer, a construction manager, and a AI specialist. So those are the roles that the AI generated from itself based off the question that it asked.
Based off of one sentence. That's impressive.
Yeah. But it's chained together a lot of different prompts to be able to do that. So you're chaining together a whole bunch of different prompts within AI. And so it's being able to understand what the question is, to be able to create the prompts, to be able to generate the personas that are being needed. So this is kind of like an auto persona generator as well. So, and let's try to see if we can go back to, okay, that is still going. Okay. I'm glad we showed this. So, and this is real time. So, so people can understand that, like, hey, things don't always show up how they're supposed to. I'm still going to let it run in the background to try to, because I'm curious to see what the answer is. But
I mean, you're going through all those roles, and so it's got 4 personas in the article about IPD that you did previously.
Yeah.
And as Marcus is scrolling, if you're not watching this video live, like the questions and answers are significant. Like this could be, any one of these questions and answers in these personas could have been your session that you've done in an AI interface, like an online version of GPT or Claude, Anthropic's Claude or Gemini, or pick your favorite. But then it keeps going. So it gets a question, it gets an answer, and then that persona, that agent, asks another question. So there's a follow-up. So it keeps having that dialogue. And then the output that we saw when Marcus first scrolled was like the ready-built article. And the article is a synthesis of all of these 4 personas in this example, asking questions. How many questions roughly do we see in this persona? Like 4, 5?
I think it's about 1, 2, 3.
So 3 big questions and answers on the specialist, and then it's doing the same thing for the other agents. I think that's a lot, like, to do and keep it all together with memory. So this is one of the things that in the early days of AI, it didn't have memory to really have like consistent dialogues with. And now here's an example where it created an environment, and it's using it's having 4 different conversations, probably almost at the same time, and then then it's reading all those conversations simultaneously and creates this synthesized output based on these 4 different conversations, all started with one prompt, one input from a human.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing. And if those who are down the rabbit hole of AI agents and working with different AI personas to get it to collaborate and come up with document generation, that's a whole other use case. Probably the use case that people are going to mainly feature is going to be some type of AI to document generation, or AI to research assistant at this point.
Yeah, we talked about this in the LCI AI talk that we give here in California, that for content creation, this is a definite use case, that if you don't know how to talk to it to do this type of stuff, then welcome. Now it can be done. This is one of the early cases. Like, a lot of people are using even Copilot in Word, in email. So some people, their companies have turned it on to help them, write letters, or to, create content, based on something you want to communicate, because it is so good at writing, and it's, typically grammatically correct. It's logical, and then there's we did this in the updated version. There's a test that they run with, not the Turing test, to see if like you can trick a person into thinking you're not talking to a robot or a computer. But there's another test where they show like just average intelligence of an adult, and GPT-4o has surpassed average intelligence of adult. So you'll see it as you talk to it. And I found this, talking to it for years now. Like I've grown up with GPT, like it's a, like a member of my family. Like it started off as like a toddler, maybe a little. It started off when it got released a little bit beyond a toddler, and now it's like talking to like a 30-year-old. And in some instances, like with programming, it's like talking to a 20-year veteran software programmer. Yeah. So the experience in some of the domains is very high. Very high.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to see. Okay. So actually, it's actually still
on step
going.
4. Yeah. But it's on step 4 now. So it's writing the article. Yeah. We're almost there.
The next thing that I want to be able to show you, I don't want to go over it for this one yet, but I can show a different one where I can go to my articles.
Yeah, and I love how this article, if you ever talk to a researcher, at the bottom of every good research paper, it always ends with some nonsense about more research is necessary. So I think it's so funny. I'm just calling out all the researchers, and I've had a few academics on the program. I'm calling you all out that you're planting seeds in every one of your works to get more works. So yes, you're baiting everybody. More research is needed.
I mean, some implementation and then some research on the implementation would be needed. I think that would be actually a really good thing. Yeah. One of the things, there's this one that we're, for those who don't know, one of the interests of ours is exploring, and we built a company around it, was exploring blockchain and construction. And Builder Pay is one of the solutions, or Builder Chain is one of the solutions to be able to do that. But and Brittany's written one paper that actually went to Parliament in the UK as far as their thoughts and ideas of blockchain within the use of supply chain. So they talk about the legal aspects and information handling aspects and stuff like that. One of the things that I did was I just kind of asked a little bit more about like kind of a vague overall question, and I just wanted to see what research and what research was out there. And I was actually surprised of how much stuff and what they were looking for and things like that. And it pulled different spaces, and I was like, oh, okay. So it's still like, they're still talking about like, yes, this stuff is being talked about, but some of the same problems that are still there after, I think, 6 years later of being able to write that article that went to Parliament. Government takes a while to implement things, just try to say.
They do.
Doesn't matter where the government is.
Takes multiple election cycles to get something done.
Exactly. And then, and another party still may block it for you. So,
yeah.
So I thought this was a really good one. Let's check back. Okay, step 4.
So that Scrum article is just exhausting. The storm.
I'm using somebody else's. I'm using somebody else's UI, using somebody else's API keys. So it's going to take a while for that one, but. At the same time, I was at least smart enough to prepare this before the call and show it from a local standpoint. And this is kind of how those who are watching are seeing the Storm one on the Stanford website. It's very pretty, nice, looks really, really awesome. But the one that you use for yourself doesn't necessarily look as well. I did have some problems at first trying to install this. But if someone wanted to install this and wanted to go through the process or anything like that, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll kind of walk you through the process. It is going to cost an API, 2 API keys. One of them eventually will be $100 a month. So you may not want to use it you may want to get your uses in early. But it has a free trial for 60 days. And then the other one, it does cost a GPT-4, but there is a way you can do it for free. I didn't do it for free, but but it does cost a GPT-4 API key. So I am hitting my API credits by using this. However, the other one, I'm using somebody else's API key.
Yeah. So we appreciate the API key sharing. And yeah, thank you, Marcus, for spending some API dollars with me on one of my favorite topics in the world. We'll make sure that the output of this article gets turned into a blog post, and we'll attach it to this interview so that in the show notes, you'll see a link to that blog post and the output of that article. We'll put the version. I'll figure out a way to get it in so that people can see like what it generated and some of the thought process. We'll expand it out a little bit. That'll be good. So what are we looking at now, Marcus?
So this is for somebody who maybe is struggling with prompting or anything like that. Claude has created this platform called they created their own prompt generator. So Claude is made by Anthropic. Anthropic is a company that split off from OpenAI. And they wanted to pursue AI a certain way, and OpenAI wanted to pursue it in a different way. So they're, I would say, they're cousins, but in a way that's still, they're competitors. So Claude has done a thing where they've generated an idea. They said, hey, since prompting is really hard for people, let's figure out a way to make prompting a lot easier for people. So I'm going to take that same question that was asked from Felipe and
how are industries using Scrum and management practices?
I'm just want to go to this and create a prompt, or should I take something else and Felipe and just make a prompt from that?
I think we can, the task will be, because this is the question I get asked a billion times. I'm new to Scrum. How can I, as a novice, start using it in my management work? That's the prompt. So, for those of you listening, like I'm beyond a decade of Scrum use. So this is not my question, but it's a question I get asked all the time. I just want to see like how good, what are we going to get from this prompt?
Yeah. So this is just a basic question, right?
So in like 3 seconds, Marcus now has like a fully generated prompt.
So what I'm going to do nicely is post this in the chat. So not Felipe, you can definitely read it out if you want to. Oops. Not sharing my screen.
Yeah, I'm going to check, see what's coming up in the chat here. Marcus is going to share what got prompted. I'll read some of it so people can see what came out if you're watching this.
Oh, it's actually too long. That's crazy.
It's too long for Zoom chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna access my Google Drive. I should access my Google Drive, not this way. What I can just try to do is this. Then I'm gonna open up my notepad and then bring the screen over.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay. Let me not share my screen when I'm accessing my Google Drive. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, we'll just we'll cut that out of the show so that we don't show all your.
Yeah.
Let's not make it easy for people to hack you. Make it a little harder.
Let's think about this for a second.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna go here and go back to share screen. Share. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I see it. It's like it's more than a page.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Probably. There we go. So
All right. So basically, here, we're talking about the role, right? We're talking
Hmm.
about that again, right? Your AI assistant tasked with helping a novice understand how to implement Scrum in their practices. You provide basic information about Scrum and specific questions to the user. Your goal is to provide clear, structured, and practical advice to help the user get started with Scrum. Right.
That's great. Yeah, first it gives them Scrum basics. Next, present them with the user's question, and then it goes into analyzing. And then some of those are code snippets, so people looking at what that is. That's code that the AI is going to understand. And I'm sure that this prompt would work in any of the large language models, so it doesn't have to go back to Claude necessarily. But for those listening, I do like the friendliness of Claude. I feel like between Claude and GPT, the personality that Claude has is a little friendlier.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's one of the great things about being able to go back and forth with the large language models. Um, and there's a really cool hack that I would love to talk about towards Felipe to kind of share with you. So if you have some personal, you can have some personal imagination about this nice hack that I kind of found which was for a workflow.
yeah,
Um, is Okay, so we have the prompt generator that's here, right? You still want to generate the prompt, and that's definitely good. But what you can do before this is we can go to Google Gemini. First, we won't want to do is we can screen record and talk through a process or something like that. So talk through a process, walk through some steps, use a screen recording to be able to do that. Use Google to record your screen that you're going to show whatever your flow, whatever your process is, and things like that. Then what you do is you post that into Google Gemini. You go to Claude and you take the Claude generated prompt based off of kind of what your task is, what you wanted to do afterwards. So now Google Gemini has access to the video because it's the only platform so far out there as of recording this at
August 22nd.
August 22nd.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that's clear. As of August, they're the only platform that takes video. So you could take that and then take this prompt, put it into Google, and it can generate and create things for you based off of the information that you have now provided it. Because they can now see, understand what you're trying to say, share, and then it can take this prompt that was generated from Claude to produce an output or produce some dialogue based off of what you're asking. So it's a nice little cool hack of taking three different things, which is screen record, but using two different LLMs in a way to generate what you wanted to do for your result for your output. So it's a really cool cool thing that you can be able to do from that. And then whatever you do with the output, you can even chain it together to go to another LLM to do some other task for you or something like that.
Yeah, that's super cool. That is, I have not played with that video feature in Gemini yet. I've done,
No?
no, not yet. I've done a lot of voice to text, a lot of talking. I've done transcriptions. I use another program as a part of my editing some occasionally to generate really rapid transcripts. So then I'll take that to one of these LLMs and say, here's a transcript of a show. And I've actually found that in the early days, it couldn't handle, like a GPT 3.5 couldn't handle more than an hour of a show. And now, when they've did these enhancements with GPT-4, it can handle I think like half an encyclopedia now of stuff. And some people don't know even what encyclopedia is. It's like just think of many Wikipedia pages strung together.
Yeah. 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 I think one of the things that I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. But one of the things that I found very interesting about putting a lot of this stuff together and going through this exploratory process is that like this AI has showed me that like there's almost unlimited different ways to kind of go about this to be able to kind of solve a problem or use a task. And you don't even need to be a programmer to be able to hack together a solution for yourself. There's two things that I didn't even go over. If somebody wants to research them and look at them later, please go ahead and do so. One is Claude's artifacts, which kind of gives you a UI that you can kind of create and mess with yourself. And then the other one is called Facebook SAM, which is segmented anything, which I think is going to be very useful for those who are in construction, and probably going to be one of the more useful tools that are out there. Basically, what it allows you to do is be able to click anything in an image or in a video, and it cuts out whatever that image is.
Wow.
So some crazy use cases around that for as far as reading diagrams, construction safety, I was thinking another one, which was there's another one's like workplace. If you want to track flows within places and things like that, I think those are going to be really huge. But I think for now, I think the low hanging fruit, in my opinion, it's going to be the diagrams, and then looking at it from a safety perspective. Be able to click and identify certain things and things like that, at least off the top of my head. And when I think about like being able to segment and point and click, and I can cut out, for a podcaster standpoint, it's like, oh, I want to cut myself out and put myself on a background. This is the super low hanging fruit for that podcasting.
That's true. That's good. That's good use case. I've talked to some architects, Marcus, too, they've been using AI to critique their fire life safety plans to be code compliant so that they can pass reviews with authorities having jurisdiction in the first round. This is something that some architects have struggled with. Some of it's just, don't have the right experience. And then building codes, they don't change like every year, but, depending on what city you're in, what country you're in, they do change occasionally. And people got to learn. So you can feed an instance of it, the information, and then you can have it review the drawing for compliance and give you recommendations and pointers of things to look at that you might have missed. So you can have it act as the authority having jurisdiction, grading your plan to the code, and then it can make suggestions to you. And then, of course, you're the human in the loop. You got to incorporate the change or ignore the change. And they found, and this one individual saying, like, it's made their first pass on review go up to 100%. So now they always pass, first pass. So like, if you think about that from an architect, all the architects listening, like depending on how big your job is, like, most of the projects I'm involved in they're north of $100 million. So for design of that, I mean, you can just use the percentages that the effort to respond to comments on a project that large can be more than 2 weeks. So if you think about a design team with their disciplines, I mean, you easily can be on a project of that size, more than 20 people for a month. So you can take 20 designers for a month and just save yourself by using AI, just looking at, we're just picking fire life safety. I mean, you could go, there are more use cases beyond what I'm saying, but these are things that can shut you down, especially if you're doing like healthcare construction. So you can save, think about this, designers. You can save a month of cost that you're just eating your profit, because what the owner contracted you to do is to create a set of documents that makes it through permitting. They don't pay for multiple rounds of permitting. They don't pay for multiple rounds of comments, because if you get comments and you don't pass, by all definitions and conventions, like your work product is subpar and it failed to pass. And now all that extra work to get it on round 2. And Marcus, some things have failed 4 times and have gone back into permitting 4 times on projects out there in the big wide world. So that's all money lost that designers cannot recoup from the client, because the client bought a bill of goods, which is a permittable set. So how they get there after that first round is all eating their profit. So this is one way. I mean, and I'm sorry to the experienced designers that are that QC person that checks this. Like, This is an example of how you better start skilling up with AI, because it can and does eliminate jobs by making things faster. Like, this is one of the darker sides of, some of these use cases, like the things Marcus and I were showing today. These are conversations in the past you'd have with other people, and now we're just talking to a prompt on our computer, and we're getting the capabilities of thousands and thousands, if not millions of people, and we're getting it in seconds with
Yeah.
no friction.
Yeah. One of the best use cases I think of AI is, or pro use cases is that you don't start off with a blank sheet of paper anymore, right? You're starting with something, and now you can create and you can iterate off of those type of things. But at the same time, there's a cost, there's a human capital cost of being able to create those things, right? Yes, it's pain instruction, and we don't like doing those things and all that kind of stuff. But I think, that it will, as the war for talent and qualified talent within the construction space, within a lot of other different industries and things like that. But more in construction, is that we're struggling to find qualified talent, and we're struggling to find people that we want to train, and sometimes we don't have the time to train those people. So being able to offset those costs, or being able to be able to pursue more projects, sometimes that's the bottleneck, is that we don't have enough people to be able to do that, and we only have one person that's doing the compliance work and making sure that the quality is supposed to be where it is. Well, now you have a chance to implement and put, now they're able to do three or four, then they don't have to do it as much. So it gives you some opportunities to be able to get some more work, and I think it gives them a potential for smaller firms to be able to compete. But at the same time, for those larger companies, those larger firms, do we need as much staff as we need to have, right? And I think that's where the displacement is going to start happening. And you start questioning those type of things. But for the smaller firms and things like that, yes, this is going to be amazing for you. You could be able to get more work, you'd be able to do more work more efficiently. But for those larger firms and things like that, it's going to be difficult. I think there's going to be some departments that were as large as they used to be, won't be there anymore. Before we used to have departments about being able to do a lot of copy paper. Now everything's on iPads and screens, and you just pass it off on a tablet. Here's the document. so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, Marcus, some people are too young. They don't even remember that there were reprographics offices. I remember in my high school, there was an office. It was like stenography. I think it had a name, the stenopool. I think they call it. I remember walking past the door, and I was like, "What's this?" And you open up the door, and it's like these machines that are like drums, where they just roll paper and copy with like mechanical pressure. It they used to make photocopies before photocopy machines came out, and it used to be like, it could be teams of like 5-10 people making copies, like using this very manual process. And now with printers and laser printers, like those departments are gone. Those jobs are gone. Nobody talks about the poor steno pool and what happened to all those people. Gone.
yeah, I mean, you can even talk about like my wife, one of her uncles worked for the UN, and that was the type of department that he worked in. So imagine doing a UN call, and you have to translate these papers and all these different papers in all these different languages, right? That's a lot of paper that you're going through for a piece of document. And so you're making sure that it's in everybody's native language. Now, he said, there were whole floors that were dedicated. And I'm not talking small, like small places,
Yeah.
Straight on printing stands of being able to generate all that stuff. But now, those departments are no longer needed, or a lot smaller than what they used to be, if there's still some paper copies out there, right? But and that's translating into multiple hundreds different languages over the same document, just so people can understand what that document meant, right? So, it's technology is always create some type of displacement. But at the same time, I think as society, as humans, we've always found different things to do. We've always found different ways to complain. And
this is true. He's not lying, people. Like in the ancient Sumerian tablets, they found when they found these things, like people back in the day complaining about stuff that they bought in the market, that they hated it so much they took the time to etch it into clay, fire the tablet, and then share it with people. So like we'd love to complain.
And I think the use cases that we come up with is that they also give birth to new industries. Somebody has to maintain that, things like that. But I think the sometimes the biggest pain for some people is the reskilling. But I do think with AI, a lot of that also can be alleviated with being able to reskill and using AI as a tutor or coach to be able to learn how to be able to do stuff. Tell me like I'm 5, right? That's a great prompt for people. And then after you tell me like I'm 5, okay, now I'm a novice. You saw the prompt that was created from Claude generate, and that was from a novice perspective. But you can go another level and say, tell me like I'm 5. I don't understand. And then they'll explain it from there, and then you can build up from there. And I think that's one of the cool things about AI is that if you need to be explained a certain way, it can take a document or take some ideas and break it down and explain it to you in many different ways that you could ever want or imagine. You can even have it talk like a pirate if you wanted to.
Yeah, and with the new GPTs, they've even had it can sing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have it sing all the answers to you. So, yeah, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your knowledge and wisdom. And we're going to keep talking for sure, as we always do, and pushing the envelope. Is there anything you want to leave the audience as they go off into their day?
Just if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn or any social media. I am Marcus Turner. I am Marcus Turner on everything that I could think of. So you can use your preferred social media platform, and please feel free to message me or ask me a question. Please let me know that you're listening to Felipe's podcast, so I can at least have some context around it. But I am Marcus Turner everywhere, and I think that would be the best way to be able to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus.
All right.
Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC Show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Let's go build.